Hey everybody! Happy Wednesday. I see everybody's coming on. Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's chat. We're going to glow it up with some information about your beautiful faces and, of course, toning the arms. It's summertime. I'm sure all of us are feeling it. It's very humid out here in Florida. Luckily, there's a nice breeze here today. But as we're coming on, maybe share where you're at. And if you have any specific questions, you can go ahead and leave it in the chat box. Rebecca is here helping to answer questions from the MELT team. For those of you guys who are new to the MELT method, welcome. I am Sue Hitzman. I'm the creator of the MELT method, which is a simple self-care technique designed to restore the fluid flow of your connective tissue system and educate people on how to live a more active, healthy, pain-free life by addressing the two systems of the body that cause most of the pain and discomfort that people talk about most often, joint pain, instability, which is your nervous system and your fascial system. So if you're eating right and exercising and you're dealing with chronic joint pain, or you don't feel resilient, or you're feeling the effects of aging, there's clearly something missing, right? Lots of people eat right and exercise and have persistent pain issues. And the connective tissue system is the stability architecture of your body. And what we spend time in MELT teaching people is how to become more aware of some of the sneaky culprits that cause pain to persist. And of course, just accelerates the aging process. And I always say, I know I'm going to age, but I want to do it later in life. So as I move through my 50s, I'm looking to sustain the resilience and my body tone and my muscle mass, because we know as we get older, these things decline. And we don't really talk about things of the face in most fitness programs, but I have to tell you, I think that some of the things that are going on in people's bodies and why we have a lot of the wrinkles earlier in life, there's two reasons. One, I think people have got to stay out of the sun, right? I think that, I wear my SPF 50. I'm in the sun for sure. I'm down here in Florida now, so my skin is certainly darker now than it was when I was always trapped in New York City. But I always cover my face. I always have big brimmed hats on, because the sun, as much as it's fantastic and I think very valuable to clean the blood as we have our eyes exposed to sunlight, definitely causes a lot of the wrinkles. But also our nutritional habits. And a lot of people eat a lot of mushy foods. I have clients who, as they've gotten older, have had a lot of mouth work done. And when I ask them what they eat, a lot of the foods that they're eating are kind of mushy. They saute a lot of things. They're drinking a lot of shakes. And the way that our jaw works is super critical to just keeping the tone and lift of the skin that is attached to your face. And we call this the maxillofacial cranium, because every region of your face actually relates to our gut and our digestive behavior. So it's important that we kind of consider more than just face creams and all these fancy gadgets that we have now. There's people telling you to take a stick and scratch at your fascia, because if you bruise your face, it'll create more collagen synthesis and things of that nature, which maybe it will, but I've seen some negative results doing those sort of things. And in fact, we can be very gentle with the face and just begin to treat our connective tissue in particular regions of our face and help to rejuvenate and plump up that tissue without causing any type of bruising at all. So I'm going to teach you one of my favorite techniques at the end, which is our mini face treatment. Now, if you use this ball, this is from the MELT Hand and Foot Therapy Kit, and this large soft ball, you'll see it has a nice squish to it. This is what we're going to use on our face. And if you don't have one of these, don't worry about it. I'll teach you how to use the heel of your hand. But I would just recommend, because we use these on our hands and feet, and so they are often on the ground, is I use kind of a face wipe, a makeup remover, or some sort of a hyperallergenic cleanser, even just soap and water, to clean your balls before you go applying them to your face. So that is one thing that we're going to do today, is I'm going to teach you the mini face treatment. Now, on MELT On Demand, this face treatment is there, as well as the full face treatment, which is even more profound. And that's some of the stuff that we want to kind of cover today, is also about the arms and keeping the tone of our arms as we get older. I know a lot of women are always talking about, I squeeze my arm and I still have stuff that rolls around the back of my arm. And I'm saying, well, what do you do to train your arms properly. And I think actually a lot of people don't do very much at all. I actually was at a yoga class the other day and watching people do their chaturangas, and she had us push down and push up 4 or 5 times, and you just see all sorts of weird stuff happening. And mostly what that's being caused by is that weakness in the long head of the triceps, which I'm going to kind of explain today for you, and why this is so important to gain new strategies in your strength training. Okay, so I've been lifting weights since I'm like 12 years old, so it's pretty much all of my life, and my muscle memory is pretty solid. And one of the things that I had always trained a lot was stabilizing my shoulder girdle. And I think this is a big missing element for a lot of people, and what actually causes the weakness in the back of our arms, which is again going to start to contribute to that thickening of the fascia and the fatty layers of our upper back. So one of the things that's happening with a lot of people is when we are sitting at our chairs, we're constantly in this flexed posture. And what we really need to understand is that your pec muscles, your pectoralis major, is attaching to your humerus. Your lats are attaching to your humerus, and they help to medially rotate the arm. And as that happens, and then we start to pitch our bodies forward, we're actually causing a weakness in the suspension aspects of our triceps, because you have 3 heads of the triceps. The tricep is actually 2/3 of your arm. Your bicep, there's only 2, but the triceps, 2/3 of the arm are tricep muscles, right? And the interesting thing about your triceps is the long head of the tricep is actually attaching to your scapula, whereas the other 2 are attaching midsection up into your arm. Now, again, the fascial continuum continues well beyond your tricep, but one of the things that the tricep primarily does is it extends our elbow joint. It's what creates elbow extension. But the long head has another role. It actually holds the humerus in place in relationship to the scapula so that we can move our arm in other movements. And when that one falls weak, this is one of these things that not only causes a little bit of that flabby arm and the arm toning, but it really destabilizes the shoulder girdle, and it increases your chances of rotator cuff issues. So triceps are a really, really important muscle to train properly, right? It isn't about heavy weights, it's about the accuracy of the movement and making sure that your scapula is set up in a proper position when you execute some techniques. The second thing that we're going to also look at today is the deltoid, how your rotator cuff and your shoulder girdle stabilizes itself. And to get you guys to just think about differences in your exercise routines and what you might be doing, I want to teach you about 3 techniques today just to increase the tone of the arm, get your arms feeling a little bit more toned, and again, just to help you to return your shoulder girdle into its place, which is actually in front of the body. I know my mom used to always say, pull your shoulders back and lift up your chest, but that's not ideal alignment. In fact, your shoulder girdle and your glenohumeral joint is a joint in front of the torso. It's not behind. It's actually in front of us, just by a little bit. So I always say if your shoulder joint was like an eyeball, if you put your thumbs on the sides of your arms and just point your arms forward, that's actually the angle of the head, or what we call the eye of the shoulder. And so circumduction, in fact, is that circular motion around that epicenter of the shoulder. And so when we get weak in our ability to stabilize the scapula, it will weaken the potential of your alignment. It will weaken your upright posture, and this will wreak havoc on your neck. And here's the big kick, is that if you're talking about this stuff that I always say is genetically inclined of my mom's, this like skin that hangs down. My mom's chin starts at her chin and the skin kind of ends at her sternum. It's just one long straight line. I'm like, how do I just want to have that nice perfect edge chin that many women do have. I am not genetically gifted with that, but when our cheekbones are over our collarbones, which is ideal, and our ears are somewhere over our shoulders, we're going to have less of that. Whereas if what you're doing is bringing your head carriage constantly in this posture, you are going to ultimately cause more of that slack in the front of your neck. So if you're talking about that turkey jowls and everything, this session for sure is for you. So what I want to start with is cleaning up a technique that is on Melt on Demand in numerous neurostrength sequences, which is called the arm and hammer. And the arm and hammer, I have demonstrated on YouTube before. It's one of my favorite moves. And what it really does is it accesses the long head of the tricep and ignites that one first prior to the elbows fully extending, which again is more of that medial and lateral heads of your triceps, which are really the ones that force strength into that elbow extension. But that long head is actually something that's holding the humerus again in the socket so that as we move our arm, it doesn't slip out of the socket. Okay, so it's a really important dynamic and it will help to bring your body back upright. There's another muscle called serratus anterior, just a big concept that also gets facilitated through this movement. Now, before we actually practice this one together, I want to teach you guys one aspect of this that will significantly help you to acquire the pose, okay? So first of all, the position of our arm is going to be like this, okay? Where our elbow and our shoulder, when we're lying on the roller, is going to be relatively lined up, okay? But the trick of it is, as we go through the movement, we are going to externally rotate the arm somewhat. It doesn't need to be big. Look at how small that was. But I also want you to practice this with me and ensure that you feel no clicking, cracking, snapping, popping, thunking, or crunching in your shoulder as you do that, because again, that's a good identification of weakness. But I also want you to notice when you do this, does your brain think that you've done this or this? Okay? I didn't rotate. I haven't moved my wrist joint. I'm only just moving in external rotation. And we're going to refine that with our second technique, which is a seated windshield wiper. Again, one of my favorite ones to improve stabilization, okay? So the movement is going to start in this relative position, hands slightly wider, and the movement of our arms when we do it is just going to be here. The only joint that we're going to move is our elbow joint. The shoulder's not going to move, the shoulder girdle's not going to move, and most importantly, our collarbones are going to remain wide as we execute the movement. So there's no protraction in your shoulders. You want to just keep your shoulder girdle nice and relaxed along the side of the roller. So if you want, you can watch me do this and watch it back later, or if you want to give it a whirl with me, go ahead and try. And much like any time I do melt, I always love doing a quick body scan before we do these techniques, because if you activate the stabilizers of your shoulder girdle by way, it's kind of a backdoor through triceps, you might find that your neck releases a little bit and your torso actually adapts in the position just from doing one quick move, okay? So let's just go ahead and lie on our back for a second, palms up, arms and legs extended. And I want you to notice three things today, okay? So the first one is, as you lie down, just take a moment to breathe in and breathe out and just sort of sense your masses and spaces. So masses are the areas of your body right now touching the floor. Just scan your body without moving. That's called using body sense. Just notice what parts of your body are touching the floor. And then also notice the spaces, the areas of your body not touching the floor. Okay, so in your upper body, when we have a lot of accumulative stress or misalignments in the shoulder girdle and the shoulder girdle has lost stabilization, a couple of things will happen. The first thing, let's go ahead and do a movement assessment. Just slowly turn your head left and right. And I want you to notice, do you have limited range to either side? Do you have any pain in your neck when you turn your head? And the third thing I want you to notice is when you turn your head to the right, does your left shoulder lift up? Or when you turn to the left, does your right shoulder seem to lift up? I want you to notice that. Okay, so just remember if you have any of those kind of signs of stuck stress, limited range, pain, or shoulders moving to turn your head. Second thing I want you to notice is, where is your torso resting on the floor? And a good way to notice this is take your arms up into the air and shimmy your shoulder blades. And I want you to notice where your shoulder girdle is. And then go ahead and let your arms rest back down. And I want you to notice if you actually feel the edges of your shoulder blades are poking into the ground. And if you're really aware of the shoulder blades on the floor, again, on an edged position, it'll literally feel like the spiny edge of your blade is touching the ground. If you're noticing that, make a note. That is ideally not what we feel. Ideally, the shoulder girdle is, again, a structure on the sides of the rib wall. So if we have good alignment, the weight will feel more in between our shoulder blades and below. So the third thing I want you to notice is, where's the tensional lift in your low back space? Are you feeling a lot of tensional lift above the belly button. If the arch of your back feels very lifted and cavernous way up here, we want to see if we can relax that to, again, improve the spinal alignment to help your shoulder mobility. Okay, so try to remember what you feel on those three things, and just doing a quick technique, we're going to see what you feel. Now, we're going to use the resistant band. You could use the light gauge or the regular gauge resistant band. I'm feeling frisky today. I'm going to go ahead and use the heavier gauged one. But the point I want to make is it's not so much about the amount of resistance you're pulling. In fact, you'd be better off having less resistance and getting more acute and aware of how you're executing the movements rather than just trying with all your might to pull on the band. Okay, so you don't need a ton of resistance on this one. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come on up onto your roller. And just make sure that your head lands atop the roller if you're going to do this technique. And the first thing we always do anytime you lie the length of the roller is keeping your knees bent with your feet flat on the floor. You're going to gently rock your body a little right and left. And this helps your autopilot, which are the autonomic aspects of your stability system, what stabilizes, supports, and protects you without your voluntary control or conscious awareness, these involuntary aspects of stability. This move helps your nervous system go into action to stabilize and support you on the unstable surface. And it also gives your nervous system time to adapt to the pressure along the spine, because it's very unusual to have pressure on the spine when we lie down on our back. Okay, so you're going to come on back to a center point and just check in for a second. I don't want you squeezing your butt cheeks or tucking your pelvis under. Just try to let your pelvis relax. Allow your body to just sort of settle into the roller. And before we do this move, I want you to take your hands along the side of your body and reach them up. And I want you to see that this is an angle somewhere in the angle of my legs. And the first thing we're going to do is a hydration technique of melt, a rehydrate technique called shoulder blade reach. And I want you to just very slowly reach your arms up toward the sky. Pause there and notice how your shoulder blades have wrapped around your rib wall. And then as you sink the shoulder blades, ideally they wrap around the outside, so they're rolling forward and they're rounding back. Now, I'm not squeezing my shoulder blades together. I'm just allowing the skeletal weight to sort of lift and lower with a minimal amount of muscular activation on this one. I'm not using a ton of muscles, but I am using muscles to hydrate the connective tissue between my shoulder blade and my scapula. Okay, it's just a nice way to set it up and to also learn something very important on this last one. As the shoulder girdle goes down, this is where the shoulder girdle must remain to do this technique. Okay, they can't round forward, they have to stay back. Now, before we do the technique, put your thumbs on your temples, and then again, make sure that the shoulders aren't rounded, they are relaxed. And then allow your forearms to externally rotate so that the thumbs are wider than the angle of the elbows. And then just try 3 or 4 times to extend and lower your arms. And check in, make sure that your upper arm isn't dropping or moving around or doing anything else. Remember, it's just the elbow joint that's activating that motion. Okay? So take your resistant band. And once you have it in your hands, it doesn't matter if one side's longer than the other, you're going to grab it, kind of fold it in half, and crumble up 2 loose handles to hang on to. And then you could always lift up your head and sort of check that the band's in a good equal state, okay? So once you've got that, I almost feel like if I had suspenders on, like my thumbs would tuck under. So I've got at least between my breast tissue and my collarbones, about that much resistance on the band. You want to feel like you're going to have some tension. I'm going to put my thumbs back along the side of my temples. I can glide my shoulder girdle again to set it up. And again, allowing the shoulder girdle to go relaxed and heavy along the side of the roller. Once I'm there, very slowly, you ready? You're going to exhale and you're going to pull the band up just enough to make it look like your forearms are parallel to the floor. Okay? And then once you're here, we're going to create that external rotation of the arms. Okay? So a little V. And this is reintegration. So if you're being mindful here, I almost want you to imagine if I were standing with you, I would almost encourage you to feel like you were pressing your upper arm toward your legs, just by an idea, just to keep that activation. And if you're doing this right, the back of your arms should be burning on fire. And if that's happening, good for you, because that's long head activating first, so we're overriding some of the common compensations of triceps. So once we're here, we're going to extend the arm just halfway up and we're going to stop. If your arms are shaking, I love it. And then bend the elbows nice and slow and just come back to parallel. Don't lose the tension on the band and pause. And then again, we're going to extend the arms up. We're going to pause. And we're going to come back to that 90 degrees and we're going to pause. 2 more times. We're going to extend just halfway up and we're going to pause. And then we're going to come back and we're going to pause. Check that your wrists are not extending. 1 more time. We're going to extend halfway up and we're going to pause. Check that you're not tucking your pelvis, your feet are light. And then come back to that 90 degrees. Check in with your shoulder girdle. This time you're going to extend the arms all the way up and we're going to pause. And then nice and slow, we're coming back down. This is called neurological reintegration. Those pauses are important. Here we go. Exhale, you're going to come up, you're going to pause. Check the wrists. Nice and slow, we're going to come on back down. You got only 2 more to do here. Exhale and extend. Check that you're not tucking your pelvis, your feet are light, your ribs are relaxed, your shoulders are heavy. 1 more time. Extending up. Nice wide V. And again, as you bend your elbows, your hands remain wider than your elbows. Now we're going to go for the pattern, okay? Tying it in here. Extending. It's funny, I've broken every one of my blue bands in this last week. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is. So here we go. We're going to extend up. Kind of had a feeling that was going to happen today. So again, you're extending up. You're bending and coming down. You're extending up. You're bringing it down. 2 more. So again, go slow. It doesn't need a ton of resistance throughout the band. Actually, I really love the way that this one's feeling right now. 1 more time, extending up and then coming back down. We're going to pause here. Make sure that the hands are still wider and just give me 4 small but controlled pulses. 3, 2, hold it there, and then releasing it all the way down. Now your arms ideally are on fire throughout the entire arm line, okay? Not just, you shouldn't feel it in your forearms, not feeling it in the elbow, should be all the way through the entire triceps, okay? So remember, the important thing here was that our elbows were wide as we extended and they remain wide as they come down. You really have to focus on that width. But just doing that one technique, slide on off the roller for a second with me, lie flat on your back. Palms up, arms and legs extended. Okay, so we only just did one technique. And I just want you to key into a couple of things that we looked at before. First, turn your head left and right. Right, we didn't do anything specific to your neck, but if the shoulder girdle is more stable, ideally it frees up the range of your neck. So just notice if you have better range. I definitely do. And then come back to the center. I want you to bring your arms up again. Shimmy your shoulder girdle. And notice where it is. And then drop your arms back down. And again, notice if you feel less edge of the blade and you feel more weight between the shoulder girdle along the rib wall. And also notice if the tension in your low back has dropped down a little bit. Now, if you're noticing these changes, this is a great indication that, again, just doing one simple technique can help to reestablish shoulder girdle stability. Roll on your side and come on up to sitting. So if you exercise, you train, you go to the gym, things like that, this is a great stabilization technique to do before you were to go to do kickbacks or overhead press or anything else where you might use your triceps. It's a great way to stabilize the shoulder girdle. Okay, so that's number 1. Okay, so now I want to talk about your shoulder girdle itself. Actually, let me just check in, see if anybody has any questions about that one technique. And let me just see. It's absolutely okay to use the half roller. I see that Carrie is here too. Hello, Carrie. All right, I think we're okay so far. Okay, so second thing, rear delt. This is a sleeper muscle, okay? So the tricep, long head of the tricep, again, attaching into the scapula. It attaches right up in here. If it's weak, the shoulder doesn't have its lift. The one of, again, it's a shoulder's helper. The other one is rear delt. This is a massive sleeper muscle. Now I see people in the gym all the time doing things that are extending their arms behind them, leaning forward and things of this nature, but I want to draw your attention to 2 different moves. Actually, let me go ahead and do it this way. Okay, so keep an eye right here on my back, all right? If I want to activate my rear delt, I cannot, I'm going to just go ahead and use the example of a band. I can't squeeze my shoulder blades together. Can you see how my shoulder blades kind of pop out of my back? That is showing a unstable shoulder girdle. I'm pinching. What I want to find is a place where if I'm bringing my arms into extension as I pull, that the rear delt is what activates, so it's more out. Okay, so if you bring your band into these poses, and I'm going to turn around and we're going to practice this one together. If you pull on the band, and I'm pulling out, ideally where the effort and the work comes from is rear delt on the back of the arm. Okay, so if you want to practice any of those kind of moves, if you go to the gym or you're doing anything of that nature, what I want you to really think of is the angle of your arms. You're better served not having your arms straight out at your shoulder, but angle them down a little bit. So when you pull the band, it's actually coming more toward the bottom of your sternum. And if you do it correctly, the band will never hit you. And then you release it down. I always have tension on the band as I do this. And I bring it down. If you're practicing this with me, your cheekbones are over your collarbones, your ears are over your shoulders. Don't let your head carriage come forward. Again, I'm pulling the band out and then returning. And one more time, pulling and then slowly returning. We're going to do a real quick reintegration. It's a little pop of the band. You're going to pull, 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 and one more time, pull. And then let it go. Now, if you've done that one correctly, your shoulders should feel somewhat on fire around the arm region. If you're feeling it in your neck, if you're feeling it in your forearms, it's the wrong pathway. So again, it's just about practicing and identifying where you're moving. Now, to clean this one up for you guys, I'm going to show you one of my favorites, which is a seated windshield wiper. I love this move. I find this one very beneficial, especially for my clients who do have neck issues and shoulder pain. Let me just bring this up a little bit. Okay, so what you're going to do is sit. You can sit in a chair. You do not need to be on the roller, but I like being on the roller because it challenges my balance. You want to sit up nice and tall on your roller, and before you put the band in your hands, I want you to put your forearms on your legs and find an angle with your legs if you are on the roller where if you can kind of see where my head position is to my shoulders. I'm still thinking cheekbones over collarbones, ears over my shoulders, and I slide my elbows down my thighs, right? So you see this angle of my legs. Now I could be doing this sitting and leaning forward, but I like these upright postures, which is why I like doing these on the floor. You could be on bolsters as well, okay? So this is gonna be our arm position, and I'm gonna do this facing you guys now that you sort of see that, okay? So you're gonna grab your band, and I like grabbing the band just a little bit wider than the logo, so about shoulders width apart. I'm gonna grab onto the band, I'm gonna slide my forearms down my thighs until, again, my upper forearm is still on my thigh. It is not my elbow, okay? Once I'm here, and I'm gonna do this in this pose and sideways, so you see it in both ways, I am pressing my forearms down into my thighs, my forearms, not my elbows, my forearms. I'm pressing the forearm down onto my thigh. Once I'm there, I'm gonna pull on the band and I'm gonna stay there. So I want you to stay exactly like this while I turn my body to the side so you can see it from a side view, okay? So this position as you're holding it is called neurological reintegration. You are increasing the timing of those deep stabilizers. So you're pulling and you're holding. I'm pressing my thighs, I'm doing two things, pressing my thighs in and pulling on the band. It's going to be a tug of war. My right hand is going to start to pull and the left arm is going to follow slowly. And I'm going to pause. I'm still pressing my forearms into my thighs. And then I'm going to come back to the center. My left arm is going to start to win the tug of war and I'm going to pull to the left. And then I'm going to come back through the center and again I'm going to pull with my right arm. It's like a little tug of war. And then my left arm is going to start to win the tug of war and I'm going to go left. And now again, we're just going to go for that pattern. We're going to go right and left like a windshield wiper. Again, my elbows are not pressing in, my forearms are, one more to each side. And then let it go. You should feel, again, a big burn deep into the shoulder as you do this one. So this rotation that you're creating, because you're pressing your forearms down and forward. I call that my J pose, like the letter J, like I'm giving somebody an uppercut, right? So as I push, it's not my elbow, it's my forearm, and it's almost like I'm dragging the skin's tissue down my thigh, okay? So this is an important concept. So as I do that, again, pulling, and here was what I did. Right arm won a little, left arm pulls, right arm follows, right arm pulls, left arm follows, right? So it's not a rotation in my torso. It's active work the whole time. It's just that one arm is winning the race. Okay? And remember, when you're doing reintegration, pause, pause, let the other one win, pause, okay? Just doing those two moves together, along with arm and hammers. If you can do 3 in a row, you're gonna get that shoulder stability. And again, it will fatigue your arm, but it will also give you a nice tone in the shape of your triceps in relationship to your deltoid. So if you want that nice little shape of the arm that people always ask me about, that's how you do it. Okay, so one more fun one today is our face treatment. And this is what we call, again, the mini face treatment. I'm just going to move this up a little bit so you can really see what I'm doing. And we're going to be working on 3 areas of your face. So the first is right behind your ear. I actually want you, there's like a little hole, a little pocket here you can almost stick your thumbs in. So just come a little bit down from there and just massage it with your fingers. And some of you guys are going to find on one side you feel kind of a boniness, and the other side you might not. And if you're feeling that, oftentimes our atlanto-occipital joint, the first rib, is shifted. And so you actually might feel it's tender on one side. So I just want you to pick that up first before we do this, that you might actually have some issues with this, okay? So this is going to be one area that we're going to work on. Then we're going to work just under the cheekbone. So find the ridge of your cheekbone and just move your jaw around. Yeah, okay? So we're going to work right on the cheekbone. And then the third spot we're going to work on is the temple, okay? If you don't have the ball, I always like using either the heel of my hand and I just sort of tuck it up and in to do the technique. What we're going to be doing is a shear, and we're going to shear 3 areas of your face. 1, 2, 3, okay? And as we shear, what is a shear? Is pinning the skin and dragging it on the underlying substances. We're not going to rub the ball and roll it around. We're going to pin the ball into our face. And what I oftentimes encourage people to do, and I'm going to do it now, is I'm going to sit up on my roller and kind of in the knee position that I had before with my knees bent. I'm going to do the same type of concept. I'm going to put my forearm or even my elbow on my thigh, and I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to tuck it behind my earlobe. I like resting my fingers on my head, and I'm just gently going to lean my head into the ball. And once I have it there, I'm pinning the ball against my skin, and I'm just going to make circles. And I'm going over the top and toward my face. In each spot, you want to take about 15 seconds to do. Okay? So the more you kind of tip and just relax, this is very helpful. I call this our mini face treatment, and it does give your face a little bit of a beauty boost, a little lift. But I've had vertigo in the past, and this is the one that helps me to get rid of that. If you have jaw pain, TMJ, migraines, these are all great techniques to apply to your body. So really for more issues like that. Okay, so once we've done it there, about 15 to 20 seconds, we tip, we compress, we wait, and then we let it go. Second area we're going to work on, again, is right at your jaw. So you're going to bring the ball right to the jaw, and we're going to tip into it. Okay? And then same thing, pinning the skin and just creating some small circular motions. You can see that I'm not rubbing the ball against my skin, right? I'm pinning the skin and creating these light touch motions. Now in your jaw, we can do an indirect shear, which is super valuable, again, for people who have jaw pain, sinus issues, migraines, really important one here. Compress the ball, tip your head, and really small here, you're going to make your jaw go, yeah, 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 yeah. And then pause. And then decompress, and now we're going to go on the temple. Same thing, you're going to rest your head into your hand, and then nice and small circles. In the lymphatic world, in our lymph system, our lymph is part of our immune functions. The lymph in the face is super important that this drains properly, and for people who have sinus issues from allergies or your environment. Again, helping move the lymphatic flow. These are watersheds. These are regions where you're going to get the most fill effect and the most drain. Sometimes you might even feel like you get a little sinus drip after you do a technique like this. Okay, same thing. I'm just going to tip. You might feel pressure build on the opposite side. Your sphenoid bone is right in here. We're compressing. And then you're going to let it go. You're going to go back to your jaw. Same thing, we're going to tip it, pin the skin, and then create those circles again. So once we've caused filling, we also want to cause the drain. So we draw it back down to where we started. Again, just pinning and just allowing that ball to move. And then same thing, compressing and waiting. You could even do the yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're feeling clicking, we know that you're actually shifting the jaw, so it's not uncommon. Don't worry. Don't make your yeah, right? It's not so big, it's just small. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then let that go. And then again, come right back to the base of your skull. Tip, and then create the small circles. And just breathe as you do it. You might even want to close your eyes as you do this, allowing that fill effect to even come around the eyes themselves. And then same thing, we're just going to tip and compress and wait. And then let that go. Okay, let's try that on the other side. So again, right behind the ear. If you don't have the ball, again, you're taking the heel of your hand, you pin, you tip, and you do the same thing. Small circles. Okay, it'll still work for you. It's a little more profound with the ball because the ball gives you a more focal compression than the heel of your hand does. Same thing, we're going to compress and wait. And then we're going to come to the jaw. Same thing, jaw, tip, small circles. Now, if for any reason you really have a hard time holding the ball in place as you do this, I have a couple of clients that say, can I do it like this? I say you can do it like that if it really is easier for you. Just pin and twist. Okay, but for this one, again, I would tip, press in, and just small, yeah, 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 yeah. And then again, just pause and wait. And then right on your temple, same thing, tip your head in and create these small circles. And then the same thing, tip and pause. And then let it go, come back to your jaw. Same thing, small circles. Same thing, we'll tip and pause. If you want, yeah, 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 yeah. And then we're going to go to the base of the skull, and we're going to do that same thing. So for me, if I'm working in the middle of the day and my eyes get tired from being at the computer, I love doing this one. It just opens up my eyes a bit. I feel a little bit more awake afterwards. And it does give you a little booty boost. It kind of lifts up your cheeks a little bit, which I just like the secondary results, not the primary results, but the secondary results. And then same thing, I'll just tip and wait. Okay, so because we're talking about lymph, we also want to learn lymph drainage, to drain it out. Okay, so now once you've produced it, we don't just want it to pool, we want to move that fluid throughout the whole face. So if you start right at your collarbones, and you put your fingers here, and super lightly with the tips of your fingers, kind of tug the skin a little bit, and then let it go. So you just pull and release. And you'll sort of see how my skin will jump. And so I'm working up, but I'm moving in a downward motion. So on the sides of my cheek here where I was, it's kind of an over-the-top motion. And you can come back down again if you want, just to kind of get the hang of the neck. And then on the cheeks, we go down and out. And then over the forehead, we come across. And then we come back down. And then back down the neck. We're going to do it one more time. Okay, so it's always a downward motion. Over the top. Cheeks over. Across the head. Back down through the cheeks. And then back down through the neck. Now, in the center, you can work straight down. Over the chin. Over the lips. And this is a watershed right here. That's why we get those crease lines. So we come straight down the nose. At the eyes, we work a little in. Down through our sinuses. Down through the lips. Down over the chin. And then down over the neck. And that's a face treatment. And just doing that, again, you'll get a little lift in your cheeks, but most importantly, it'll help to move the fluids around the face, which can also decrease neck tension, eye strain, migraines, all sorts of things, jaw issues as well. So I'm going to see if there are any questions to today's little session today for our toning of our arms and getting ready for our summertime. I'm all for summer. Let's see. Pain in the right shoulder joint in front under collarbone when doing windshield wipers. So Kim, if you're saying like here, you get like a kind of a pain sensation at the collarbones, right? So if we have that, the Arm & Hammer is going to be super important for you to land. And if that one's tough for you, there's another one called a quadruped arm fan. There's also standing arm fans, side-lying arm fans. There's a lot of different ways to execute that move. But if you feel like you're getting a lot of pressure, you're probably pushing a little bit too hard is my guess. And so again, if that humerus isn't set up right or those collarbones are rounding forward as you do it, which is not what I was asking you to do, right? It's almost like we were coming out and under so that the back of your scapula get to widen out, right? So it's not forward, it's an outward position as you go through that motion. So if that's something that anybody else felt, you kind of felt it sort of under the collarbone and the front of the shoulder, you're pushing, you're protracting a little bit. So just practice it again and watch it back and see if you can master that one. Oh, Darlene, I'm glad that you love that one. The face treatment always helps my neck too. Anytime, I had vertigo not too long ago. I had a little bit of an ear infection, and it was like in a day, it nipped it in the bud because vertigo can last for days, weeks, months. So not entertaining to have that at all. It's horrible. Yes, and Carrie, thank you for answering it. There you go. Exactly right. Yeah, most of the time when we feel anything in the head of the capsule, remember the humerus, this arm bone has to roll in that socket. So if you push your forearm down, and if we're not really executing it from serratus, holding that pose, or we're pushing down, we're rounding the shoulders, you're going to bury the humerus up into the socket. And what we're trying to do again is that J pose. Remember what I said about that J pose, right? So the J pose, when you do this, is taking your arms and scooping them, right? So that it's gently compressing, right? I'm not pushing my arms as hard as I can. I'm just keeping compression so that as I go through the movement, there's somewhere for the joint to go, right? I'm not trying to close off the joint. If anything, I'm trying to keep my shoulders wide and open. So if my sternum's a headlight, it's pointed straight ahead. My shoulder blades are wide. My collarbones are wide as I go through it. And again, it's just gentle pressure. Just meet your forearm pressure with your elbow pressure, right? You'll probably figure that one out for yourself. Okay, so I hope that gives you guys a couple of little strategies today. On Melt on Demand, there are a copious amount of summertime techniques for the back of the arm. I do stuff out at the beach, all sorts of things. So I want you to really kind of think about these strategies, think about how you are executing techniques and movements, and try to keep your mind into this idea that bicep curls are awesome, right? But we're so in a sagittal body. We move forward so much. And if you're sitting there typing away, typing, we're shortening that tissue in the front body. Our pecs are definitely creating contributions to that pitched posture. And then it just destabilizes and weakens the rotator cuff. It weakens the deep stabilization components of our shoulder girdle. And triceps, as much as we think of that as an arm muscle, is a significant contributor to your shoulder girdle stabilization. So I want you to really think about how you're executing techniques when you go to the gym, or if you're taking a class or anything else. I hope that this gives you some food for thought. One final note, we have a brand new Melt Method website. It's like Melt 2.0. A lot of new user experience features on the new website, which hopefully is up and running right now. I'm crossing my fingers that this is true, but hopefully by tonight, we're just in the middle of the transition today. And there is a brand new Melt on Demand platform where we will be doing live classes, which is super exciting for me, where not only is it live like this, but I get to see you guys, we get to interact. It's even better than Zoom because you can even have an accountability partner. You guys can talk to one another. We can communicate back and forth at the beginning and end of class, just like as if you came into the studio with me. Carrie Bodendorf, who's here, one of our Melt Master trainers, and Amanda Sizik, Kim Villanueva, and Hallie Altman will also be doing some live classes, and more Melt instructors to come, so that you get to see the wide array of Melt instructors teaching live classes on our new platform. So make sure that you keep your eye on meltmethod.com. Remember, I'm always over on Instagram too. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel and like the page. And if this helped you, let me know if you incorporate these into your daily practice or into your weekly weight training practice. I hope that helps everybody. Thank you guys again so much for joining me. I'll probably be back next month doing some quick technique tutorials on YouTube that coincide with the classes that we'll be doing on the platform. So again, I hope you guys will join me there. Make sure you're sipping water frequently, eat water-filled foods. Do me a favor, reach out to somebody that you love today and put some positive vibes out into the world. We need it more than ever. So I hope that you'll keep that positive energy going and help us all thrive. Happy melting.